Welcome to Diamonds and Dumpster Fires, the show where we talk about finding strength when life falls apart. I'm your host, Melie, and around here, resilience isn't perfection. It's falling flat, getting back up, and maybe laughing about it later. From breakups to breakthroughs, we mix faith, neuroscience, and a little sass to help you rebuild a life that actually feels like yours. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, resilient ones, and welcome back to Diamonds and Dumpster Fires. Today is a special episode, and not because we're doing anything particularly glamorous. There are no confetti cannons, there's no slow-motion celebration montage, and I do not have any inspirational music to play in the background. But the reason that we are celebrating today is because today marks a big milestone. This is episode 52, which means that I have shown up here every single week for an entire year. And here's what's wild about that. I didn't start this podcast because I felt ready. I didn't start it because I had a perfect plan or because I thought the world desperately needed one more person with a microphone. I started it because honestly, I felt God nudging me. It was something that I had wanted to do for a long time, and I felt His hand really guiding me toward starting this podcast. I knew that I had something to say, and even though my life still felt like a dumpster fire itself, I knew that I could help others. And so today, instead of just giving you a highlight reel of the past year, I wanted to give you something that's helpful and honest and actionable. So today, I'm going to be talking about what 1 year of podcasting has taught me about resilience and how it can strengthen you. Not just in recording a show, but in showing up consistently, telling your story, healing, building something from scratch, whatever that dream of yours might be, and walking with God through seasons you did not choose. So whether you've been here with me from episode 1 or you just found this podcast yesterday, thank you. You have been a part of my healing and part of my resilience journey, and you are part of why this next year feels so full of possibility. So let's dive in and talk about what this year has taught me and what I hope it unlocks for you. I have 7 lessons that I'm going to share with you, and after each short lesson, I'm going to give you an action step that you can do if you would like to improve your resilience as well. Lesson 1 is resilience is built in tiny acts of consistency. We talk about resilience like it's this big, heroic thing. But in honesty, resilience looks like doing something small, again and again, even when no one is clapping. I didn't become a podcaster who, had a major hit right out the gate. I just became a person who hit record once a week, no matter what was happening in my life. And let me tell you, this last year has been full of lots of surprises. Some good, some really not so good. If you were with me over this past summer, you know that my house was flooded by my neighbor's contractor. And let me tell you, that was a week I really didn't want to record. I did have to reschedule an interview due to just the noise and the craziness, but I still showed up. I came here into this little booth, and if you could see me now, I'm sitting in this, it's a double-walled vocal booth, but it's, about a 4-foot wide little space, and I just came in here amongst the noise and just recorded something. I've been overwhelmed with work. I'm in school, and as you may or may not know, I actually just signed a book deal, so I've got a lot going on. But even in all of that, I still showed up here to record each and every week. Why does this matter? Well, neuroscience backs this, that repetition builds neural pathways. Our identity follows action, not the other way around. Our faith backs this up too. God meets us in those daily moments where we show up, do what He's given us to do, and just move forward. It's not always growth in the giant leaps. So here is your action step for this week. I would love for you to pick one habit that you can do weekly for the next 4 weeks. Make it small enough that quitting would feel sillier than continuing, and then show up on Instagram and let me know what you did. And now for lesson 2, which is vulnerability is a resilience strategy, not a weakness. Some of my most vulnerable episodes have been the ones that I came to reluctantly. The ones where I thought, is this too honest? Is this too weird to share? Is this too messy, too soon? And I am telling you, those episodes are the ones that touched people the most. And the reason I think that is because people don't need polished stories. They need us to share the truth we're living in. Of course, neuroscience backs this up in that vulnerability increases our connection with others. Authenticity reduces our stress response, and our mirror neurons fire when we see someone step into honesty. I think for me, episode 1 was probably one of the most vulnerable moments of my life. I was sharing my story of going through divorce and what led me here to start this podcast in the first place. I was scared when I hit record. I actually tried to record it a couple of times and then thought, you know what, I'm just going to go with this one, edit it, put it out there, see what happens. And I will say I got so much incredible feedback from people who felt seen when they heard my story because there were elements of things that they had gone through as well, or people that reached out to encourage me and tell me to keep going. So your action step related to this for this week is to share one true thing this week. That can be with a friend, your partner, just in your journal, or just inside your prayers to God. Lesson 3 is creativity regulates the nervous system. I learned that creating this podcast was not just a calling from God. It has also been incredibly therapeutic. There were weeks where sitting down to record has helped me regulate my nervous system more than anything else I was doing, other than perhaps knitting. There were times when sharing stories with all of you was honestly the best form of community I could ever hope for. As I've shared in many an episode throughout this past year, I've had a really hard time finding community and where I fit in. But those of you who reach out, who give me encouragement, who have been with me along the way, honestly, I thank you so much for that community that it's provided. And most of all, this podcast has given me the ability to create. So we know that creativity activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming system. It quiets noise, grounds us, creates space between us and our stress. And from a faith standpoint, creativity actually connects us to the Creator. So here is your tiny action step for this week related to creativity. Build a tiny creative ritual this week. It can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just something that lets your mind rest that you truly enjoy. Lesson 4 is consistency isn't motivation, it's structure. So we all know motivation is amazing, right, when it shows up, but it's quite unreliable, especially for those of us who have ADHD. If I only recorded when I felt motivated to do so, we'd probably be on, episode 7 right now. But this podcast has continued because I built a structure that kept me going when motivation evaporated. And this isn't about being superhuman, absolutely not. It's about being supported. You schedule recording time and you protect it. You accept that some episodes will be recorded in sweatpants with messy hair, most of them actually, and having zero emotional energy sometimes, but that is still valid. I honestly can say that having this scheduled time has truly saved me. Even as I record this episode right now, normally I do record about a week, sometimes 2 in advance. I am recording this episode for you on Monday night before it releases on Wednesday. But I had this time scheduled out. I knew I was going to be able to take the time to get this episode recorded. So it doesn't always work out that we can put these big buffers into our time, but just having that time scheduled is going to help us in the long run to actually create and follow through on those creations. So your action step for this week related to lesson 4 is to choose something that you want to be consistent in and create a structure for when, where, and how long. And now we'll move on to lesson 5, and that is that people connect to your story, not your perfection. This year truly affirms something that I know deeply. People want real. People want human. People want connection. They don't necessarily need polish. The episodes that people message me about the most are the ones where I truly brought my whole self. My faith, my fear, hope, doubt, healing, the humor that goes along with all of that, just bringing it all. Your story doesn't have to be tied up with a bow to share it. God always can use the frayed edges too. And this is reinforced by neuroscience. We know that humans are wired for story. It's how the brain assigns meaning. So your action step this week is to stop waiting to feel ready or good enough to start something or share a story. Start now. Messy, human, loved. And let me just say, I really think that now is a time when we need these messy stories the most. There is so much out there with AI and all this fake stuff on social media, people putting their best foots forward and not sharing the truth behind it. And I know I've shared this story before on the podcast, but I was at a networking event where someone came up to me and we started talking. I shared that I had a podcast, and they actually told me that they were going to put my podcast out of business and others as well with these AI-generated podcasts. Now, I had a lot to share with this person about that. First of all, being that put me out of business is kind of silly because I don't make any money on this podcast. But second of all, I said, people want real stories. I asked, how is the AI going to tell stories? And this person was very excited to share with me that AI could generate all kinds of stories and come up with all kinds of things. And yes, that is true, right? We know that's true, but it's not truth. It's not real stories, the messiness of just the humanness, and people want that. So please stop waiting to feel ready or good enough to start something. Put it out there. Just start now. Be messy, be human. That is what people are looking for. Now on to lesson 6, which is God uses your obedience, not your expertise. This podcast did not grow to where it is today, which, is still moderate, but it is growing. But it didn't get there because I had the perfect strategy. It has grown because I've showed up with what I had and worked hard. God doesn't bless perfectionism, He blesses obedience. And somehow that is honestly where the miracles live. So your action step related to lesson 6 today is to ask, where is God asking me to show up imperfectly this week? Now on to lesson 7, which is reflection is what turns experience into wisdom. One of the things that I think surprised me the most this year is how much looking back has helped me grow more than just looking forward. What do I mean by that? Well, when I listen to past episodes, even though honestly part of me cringes to hear them, I have seen how far God has brought me. Reflection consolidates learning, it strengthens neural pathways, and it turns survival into wisdom. Faith honors our reflection too. God constantly told His people to remember. So how can you reflect on something that you've been doing for a while? What has grown? What has strengthened? What has shifted? Maybe try journaling about it, and then, if you're brave, share it with a friend. So those are the 7 lessons that I have learned from a year of podcasting. I could probably have gone on and done like 52 things I learned in 52 weeks of podcasting, which would have been an interesting title, but probably would have bored you to tears. But I just want to thank you all for joining me, for being part of this podcast. I'm excited about what's coming in 2026. And to wrap this episode up, I just wanted to share a little bit about what has surprised me the most this year. I will say that my absolute favorite episodes have been those where I have interviewed others. I started this podcast as a solo podcast with the idea that maybe I would bring in somebody to interview, once a month or whatever. And I can honestly say that I look forward so much to the episodes where I'm interviewing others, sharing their stories. And those are the episodes that I get a lot of feedback from listeners. So thank you so much. And I'm so grateful for those who have been on the show, that are planning to be on the show, that they are willing to participate in this with me. Another thing that surprised me is that the topics that I hesitated to talk about were often the most helpful for people. A lot of times this came from something that just came to mind as I was interviewing somebody, and I shared a story and later thought, wow, I wonder if I should have shared that. But I let it go into production anyways. Often those are the stories that people will write to me about and say, oh, I'm so glad you shared that. I'm so glad you felt that too. I also have experienced this. So thank you for those of you who do provide me feedback like that. It means a lot. And I just want to close with a blessing for you as we head into 2026. This podcast is still going. There are going to be episodes through to the end of the year. But as we wrap up this 1 year of podcasting, I just want to pray a blessing over you as we close out this 1 year milestone. So as you step into your next brave thing, I pray that God strengthens your hands, steadies your mind, and fills you with a courage that doesn't depend on circumstances. May His peace anchor you, may His joy surprise you, and may He remind you that your small steps matter in the kingdom. Thank you for being here with me for a whole year. Thank you for listening, sharing, sending messages, praying, cheering, crying with me, and letting me step into your world each week. This podcast began as just a dream that I'd always had, along with obedience to what I felt God was calling me to, but you all have helped me turn it into a community. So if this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a friend, leave a review, or shoot me a DM on Instagram at Melie Williams? So here is to year 2, to resilience, and to the diamonds we will certainly find in the most unexpected places. See you next week, resilient ones. That's a wrap on this episode of Diamonds and Dumpster Fires. If you're walking through the ashes right now, remember, you're not broken. You are becoming. Don't forget to subscribe, share with a friend who needs it, and come back next week for more faith, honesty, and a whole lot of heart. See you next time.